You're listening to Discography Discussion, episode 216, Nodes of Ranvier, hosted by Dan Terry.
But I'm going to kind of need that phone number to, tell you when the CD's done.
Buddy Reno.
Dead air. Dead air.
And Joseph Wren. I have been playing Cyberpunk so long that I'm about to uninstall it. Presented by discussmetal.com. And if you break out the best china when your friends come over, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Buddy. We brought the Doom Hammer to break some china, if you know what I mean.
Oh, man.
Let's do it.
This is outrageously exciting. This band holds a very special place in my heart. And before we get on with the episode, I just want to personally apologize to the listener that we are going to spend a little bit of time on the first album, a little bit of time on the third and fourth album, but we're going to spend a lot of time on the second album. So just be ready for that.
I have my cola-based soda product with some whiskey-type drink in it. Lemmy would be proud. You guys just go all night on that second record if you want. We went all night on that record for Patreon, because who doesn't want some serious melodic metalcore in their life?
And it is very serious. Like, they brought everything, man. They brought the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
What about the Doom Hammer?
They brought the Doom Hammer. They broke out the best china. Nodes of Ranvier is one of those bands that, for the life of me, I can't figure out why they're not around now, as they used to be kind of a huge staple for us. Not like the band staple. They were all right. We talked about them on Patreon. But I will tell you.
Gosh, I forgot about them guys.
Right? Yeah. So did I until we did that Patreon. I was like, I wonder what Staple's up to. Nothing. They're up to nothing. But Nodes is unfortunately also up to nothing, and we're gonna kind of give our opinions on why we think that may be. But we've got a fun episode. May not be the longest one you've ever heard, but it is to the point, which is the only way that Nodes would want it.
Well, before we blink and miss it, I'm going to take this time to say thank you to everyone for listening to the podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We're on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. So if you have an Amazon Echo or a Google Home, you have no excuse. Ask it to play the latest episode of the Discography Discussion podcast, and it will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening. And now Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
I do enjoy reading reviews from time to time, so if you feel kind enough to leave us one on Apple Podcasts, as I think that is the only place that you can leave us one. You can go to our Facebook and leave us a review. I'll even read that too. But thank you guys so much for supporting the show like you have. Thank you for all the people that share the episodes and all of you guys that contribute on Patreon every month. Literally, without you guys, there would be no show. So thank you so much. Over on YouTube, in reference to episode 203, Skillet, Random Album says, "Love y'all's show. Speaking of The Offspring, they have a new album coming out next month. I would love to see a second episode on The Offspring. Sadly, I don't have very high expectations for it. So far, it sounds like it's going to be poppy as fuck. But I really hope they prove me wrong, because they can get pretty aggressive and heavy when they want." I agree. I was actually kind of surprised. That comment wasn't even about the Skillet episode. But I was actually pretty surprised that The Offspring was as aggressive as they were, especially some of their old stuff was a little bit more aggressive, which you tend to see that with more popular bands, except for Skillet, who actually became more aggressive as they went, and then we got to see a more mainstream, like, poppy version of the heavier Skillet. So they've definitely gone on quite the ride, much like the Offspring have.
Sign me up for a revisited Offspring episode, but we really don't have much more to say. But that new record, keep your eyes on Patreon. $1 gets you into that exclusive album review feed. We'll tell you what we think. I guarantee it.
Hell or high water, right? In reference to episode 212, Testament. I don't know what happened there. Let me try that again. Testament. Okay, all right.
You can't do it, can you?
Yeah. YL2K says, "Hell yeah. Now time for Morbid Angel."
It's on the way. That's what I have to say.
I think it's on the schedule.
You want me to say what week it is, or do you want me just to keep that information to myself?
I don't like spoiling that sort of stuff. I like people to to have to slog through 9 or 10 or 11 or 20 episodes before they get to the band that they actually want to hear us talk about. I don't know why, but I get a sick pleasure out of that. So be looking out for that. We had an email from, and I'm so sorry if I pronounced this wrong, but you've heard our show, so you know. We got an email from Seska Scarba. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. I'm so sorry. She says, "Greetings, beautiful creatures. I happened to stumble across Alone number 85, which was our Virgin Black episode, if you guys don't keep track of them by number like we do." She says, "Extraordinarily entertaining. I won't take up too much of your time. But Piano Miso, the long-awaited third album by the band, of that trilogy, it was recorded at the same time as the other two Requiems, which I didn't know that. So, but at the end of it, she also says, 'And buddy, you're welcome,' in reference to how Buddy actually met his wife through Virgin Black."
That was the story we told in that episode. It's so sweet. Memories.
I basically used the album to, get my now current wife's phone number, burning her a copy of it. So that's what that's a reference to.
So yeah, so now you're welcome. Not much to say except you're welcome.
Hey, that's stuck in my head like all day, every day.
So Dan, tell me about Nodes of Ranvier.
Oh my God, I thought you were never going to ask. Oh, Nodes of Ranvier.
What have I done to myself?
They are from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's right here in the good old US of A. And let me tell you, these guys are amazing. They've been around, or they had been around since 2000, and have had quite the lineup. They've had over 18 different band members. And pretty much every time you hear a Nodes album, you're hearing basically a different band. But you know what? I'm comfortable with it for the most part. We're gonna get into it, but these were one of my favorites back in the day. One of my favorite Face Down Records bands. This is whenever I was kind of transitioning a little bit from just solid state to like face down type of bands. And I remember getting really into Nodes, really into Symphony in Peril. And then there was another band I was into called Mortal Treason at the time, who were on Flickr Records. And I remember because we actually used to call Mortal Treason Symphony and Zeogene because they sounded like Zeo, Symphony in Peril, and Norma Jean. But Nodes kind of stood out because they were doing something very original. Like they were absolutely like a melodic kind of metalcore band for the time, but the vocalist was just sick. I mean, just like completely in your face, ultra like take Zeo's vocals and then drop them by like 5 octaves. Like they're deep but super growly. Like the dude is serious as can possibly be. And that's really what got us hooked on Nodes. I remember Buddy and I were scoring godcore.com one day because that's just where you went.
That's where you went.
That's where you went. And we heard 2 songs by Nodes. One of them was called Soundtrack for Salvation. And I believe the other one was called The World. Or maybe it was The World, or was it A Life? I can't even remember now. Might have been Do You Want to Dance? Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know.
All I can say is that we were completely blown away. Our little minds were blown. We listened to those MP3s because that's what you did. You spent a half hour per song downloading each song from Godcore, and you were just happy if you got an entire song instead of just snippets. And you also used to be able to find this on hardcoremp3.com, some of their other songs, but basically, this band blew me away because they play metalcore, but they play like old school metalcore. This is a little bit before the Azalea Dying takeover that took place. I want to say in like 2003, so not far off. But these guys delivered some pretty face melting records in 2002 and 2003, respectively. And then they also released 2 other ones.
This band runs the gamut of metalcore in the early 2000s. Sometimes it sounds like Zeo. Sometimes it sounds like Haste the Day. And then it sounds like Norma Jean, because why not? You're welcome. Overall, it's heavy. It's melodic. I enjoy it. And Dan, he just can't stop talking about those vocals, man.
Those vocals. Let's get into it, man. Let's do the thing we're here to do.
Throw my screen up. Just do it one time for Buddy.
Oh, man. That's old school.
Yeah,
Pulling up that Wayback Machine Godcore. Good gravy.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
You're welcome. 2002. Lost Sense, More Innocence. Get it?
I got one question for you.
So much sense.
I mean, I'm gonna, I'm just gonna ask you guys a very serious question. Do you want to dance?
Do you?
I will. You're not going to dance. You're going to stand in the back with your arms folded. I'm going to be lost in the pit somewhere, dancing, while I'm surrounded by other people that are hardcore dancing, if you can call that dancing. And then Buddy will come out of nowhere with a giant ninja flip.
Oh, yeah.
Take
I would
hardcore
land on my
dancing to the
face
next
if I
level.
did that.
Do You Want to Dance starts off very melodically. You're going to find on this record that this band, likes to open their songs up with something really melodic on this record.
Yeah.
Every song has kind of this really kind of hooky melodic intro that they don't really ever do again. This record is very much a product of the times in the sense that they will play 20 different riffs in the span of 3 minutes. And it's like, okay, this one's done. Okay, we're going to go to this part. Now we're going to go to this part. But Nodes was able to tie all that together into what actually sounded like a real song. Whereas, they weren't as bad as like a Symphony in Peril, who was notorious for that, playing a riff for 10 seconds and then switching to something else.
Yeah, because, a lot of other, hardcore bands and metalcore bands at that time, it just felt like the riffs were just kind of glued together. But there's something with the way, like, you could tell that they were really confident in their musicianship, because all these tracks, even though it did seem like, if you took it piece by piece, we're going to glue these, riffs together, but they all still feel like they were meant for that section. Like, they all feel like a logical progression of each other, instead of just, this riff was cool, let's put it here. This riff was cool, let's put it there.
And that's a little different from what other metalcore bands did, where they just played a riff and then stopped, and then played another riff and stopped. While this band definitely does that, this record has a little bit more composition. Yes, they do that start-stop thing, but it doesn't sound forced as much as they wrote it that way. Honest, I think, is the word I'm trying to say. It sounds like it makes sense, and sounds like an old-school metalcore record to me. It's heavy. Yeah. I love it.
Do You Want to Dance is one of my favorite album openers of all time, just because of the opening lines. And the guy's got just the deepest, coolest register. And like the intro is so melodic that you wouldn't, like, you're almost not really expecting the vocals to sound like that. And then he comes in with some of the most brutal lyrics ever. He's just like, I want to dance and I want to see blood. Dance and we're going to see pain written on the face of my innocent child. It's like, oh my God. Now, are you boys sure this is a Christian band?
The song does have a date on it. Let's be honest.
It does, 9/11/2001. Yeah. So, I mean,
they're definitely trying to invoke something.
Some things that I like about this record that they don't really do on any of the other records, even the self-titled, which is just a completely just wonderful album. But there's a lot of cool stuff vocally that goes on. There's a little bit of clean vocal thrown in there. But there's a lot of talking, which is something that I'm a big fan of. But it's not talking in like a, the band's playing the riff and then some idiot comes in and is all like, an illness to call your own or something like that. It's not just some moron doing something like that.
I see what you did there.
It's more like there's a lot of weird whispering and like background chattering going on in the songs. Like vocally, it's like a masterpiece in like just being kind of eerie. There's just so much going on, and it gets really out of control once you get all the way to the song Adam at the very end, which is like starts off clean or whatever, but then like it's like clean and pretty melodic, and the dude's like talking, and then like you just hear these gut-wrenching screams in the back, and at some point somebody says Satan. It's terrifying. It is a terrifying song. But then at the end of it, it gets all melodic in it, and he's like, but we have one thing for hope. We have Jesus Christ. And then it becomes all pretty and happy, and just the dynamics of this album are just all over the place, And I do not think that this is their best record, but it is absolutely like only like 20% less than their self-titled. Just in the sense that we haven't even talked about that record. I'm already comparing the other records to it. But like this record it's enough to get you into the band. It's enough to show you the potential. But I think it's a little too Zayo in a few places. And I don't mind that, because Zayo's the only other band I could think of that kind of creates this like kind of creepy atmosphere. When the singer is like, it's like talking clean. It's very reminiscent of what Dan does on the Zayo records, and his voice does sound like a Zayo voice, but like I said, it's almost like pitch shifted down in a way. It's not actually pitch shifted. That's just what his voice sounds like. But it does wear a little bit of that Zao influence on its sleeve a little too much. So it loses a couple points in the originality department for me. But in comparison to the other bands that were coming out at the time, this was wholly original.
Yeah. I think you touched on something that I think also like sets this band apart is the word dynamic. And it's that they're not afraid to, drop the sound down and play clean, play melodic, and let the songs breathe, because that gives them some sense of, memorability to it, because it's commonly throughout the album, songs will drop down and they'll do like some kind of interlude, and then they come back in really hard and punch. And those times are when it creates those hooks. And, those are the things that you get stuck in your head.
Absolutely. And I mean, as much as I love this record, I let's be honest, like, because we heard this one, but the self-titled album was the first record that we went out and bought as a new release.
I'm trying to find, I think it's at the end of Soundtrack for Salvation. It's where, I think that's where we started making that joke about how, was it like satanic metal bands? They all sing like Satan, but then at the end of Soundtrack for Salvation, he's just screaming, Jesus!
I know, right?
Jesus!
Shout out to Sean if he's listening. I like how this record is very similar to the metalcore stereotypes in 2002, but it really doesn't sound like those other bands. It has an underground feel. It sounds a little dirty, but it's not blatantly a hardcore record. This one overall feels heavier, and that's going to be important in 2003 Nodes of Ranvier.
So have you guys ever like gone over to a friend's house before, and like you know this person, you haven't known them that long, you've only known them for about, I don't know, like a year, and you're good buds and everything, and you talk sometimes, and you decide to go over to their house one day, and they're like, yeah, come over. I've got beer, I've got chips, I've got pizza, I've got everything. It's cool. Let's do it. And so you knock on the door, they open the door, and then they just punch you in the face immediately. That's what this record sounds like when you first turn it on. Literally, it opens up to silence, and then you just hear, this is Jimmy Page, and I want to hear some rock and roll, and then you're not ready for it, because this is the band that faked us out on every track on the last album. It all started with something pretty, something melodic. So you're expecting something like "Do You Want to Dance?" But no, they don't care about that. Okay, we're going to be as aggressive as possible right out the gate. So a clean hand and a clear conscience. Oh my God, so good.
But I mean, what's awesome is that even though they're so brutal up front, they don't lose the part that makes them them, which is that dynamic aspect. They back up and they play, softly or melodically, and then they punch back in. And yeah, it sells this entire album on every single track. For me, there's not a bad moment on this album at all.
I love it. He goes back into the clean talking, and he's like, and bow, or he's like, and bow down to the kings of your scene and abide by the punk rock laws. But as for me, I'll stay sober. Like, oh my God, like, oh, I just can't get past it. How he just has that voice, and I'm so jealous of it. Like, it is otherworldly good. And I can't get past it. A clean head and a clear conscience, like 10 out of 10, would listen to again, and I have. I'm listening to it. I'm listening to it right now in FLAC, so it really gets that punch in there.
Oh yeah.
But then it goes right into 8 Weeks of Privilege, No Time for Regret, and so this one starts off dissonant but melodic. That's the band's dynamics again coming in really, really, really hard on this, where it just comes in. It's chaotic. It's a flurry of screams. And you've got that that we all love out of metalcore. Like, it just, and
there's so
rips
many
my skin off, dude.
There's so many quotable lines, even from this song and just every other song that's on this album. Like,
yeah. So if you guys have ever heard the End of Destiny song, "Luxury Suicide," removing my hands from my throat, that is where this song is where that song name comes from. Because literally he goes into it and he goes, literally removing the hands from my throat. My heart is too secure for your insecurities.
And we apologize right now, because we said we were going to spend a lot of time on this album, and we're probably just going to go track by track.
Oh my God. We don't do it that often, so I'm hoping Joe gives us a free pass this time.
Definitely not. I'm going to say it right out of the gate. I said it on Patreon. He's still not happy when I say it. This band has a Haste the Day vibe on this record. That's not a bad thing. It's
like Haste the Day goes and gets them coffee or something. Like, come on.
I mean, it's more like Haste the Day has a Nodes vibe.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the timeline to tell you which one of us is correct in this scenario. The point is, you can be melodic and play metalcore, and it be interesting.
Oh yeah, that's the thing about this album is it makes it so interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the tropes. You can hear the tropes. They are there. Everything that this band does, I've heard someone else do, but for some reason, the way Nodes of Ranvier puts it together on this record, it flows from beginning to end and executes an atmospheric composition in a way that you feel better when you're done with the record than when you started, but you can pick the record up and play any track, and it's like a breath of fresh air no matter what you're listening to.
You know, I wonder if it feels like the music accentuates the vocals and what they're saying at the time as well. Sometimes you get those bands where, I mean, I could be completely wrong about this, but you get bands where it's like they get together and they make the song essentially, and then the singer comes in and kind of just is like, all right, this is kind of what I want to sing about, and I'm gonna kind of write it around the music, in a way. And it feels like they all collaborated on concepts and themes, and the singer came up with the lyrics and they worked the music around those words. Like especially in 8 Weeks, he's accentuating the word coward in that bridge line, and it just feels like the music is just supporting those lyrics every time.
Congratulations, buddy. You nailed what's awesome about this band. It sounds like a group working together to create an awesome composition instead of it being one person who's the leader who makes all the decisions.
Yeah, I think that my favorite part of 8 Weeks of Privilege, No Time for Regret is how I think it's probably, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes into the song. It's an unusually long song for this record. This is not a long record. But they start playing this really fairly generic metalcore riff, but they're playing it at 1/4 the normal speed. Yeah, and he's just like, "Go on, quit wasting my time, spend more time on you." And then he goes into that "To the eye you are sweet, but to the soul you're sour." And then once they build that up for about a minute and a half, and then they start playing the generic metalcore riff at the normal speed. And even though it's a generic riff, you're ready for it. Now you want that to happen, as they've teased it, throughout the entire time. You want them to go into that full rock out mode, and they do not disappoint. This song is, 27 out of 10.
You mentioned
would listen again.
Yeah, you mentioned, the riff that's around 210. I think this is where it gets into the musicianship instead of just gluing, riffs together, because the riff at 2 minutes on this song, 8 Weeks of No Privilege, that is, and then back again at 3 minutes, it's the same riff, but they play it at a slightly faster pace at the end, and that's because they're showcasing this is the intensity of the song, because the song is building to its crescendo, and that just shows right there they know what they're doing, and it friggin' shows.
Right, because insert name of As I Lay Dying Sounded Like Band, that song is 3 minutes long, it's much faster, and it doesn't build to anything. It's just play the generic metalcore riff, now play the melodic part, now play the generic metalcore riff, and we're done.
Yeah, it works because there's not a formula. There's the Nodes formula, And then they don't shy away. They don't slow it down here. You go right into Butcher, the Baker, plus the Candlestick Maker right after this. And it's an onslaught. I mean, what else can I really say? I almost blew the speakers on my sound system listening to this earlier today, and my ears are still kind of ringing from it because I'm an old person and I have tinnitus now, so it's one of those things. But this song absolutely blows out of the water. This Buddy and I used to play this all the time on our radio show, where it was just anytime we were I really want to listen to something heavy, and I'm tired of taking requests. Yep, Butcher plus Baker, Butcher the Baker plus the Candlestick Maker. Let's go. This song's incredible. And as fun as the title is, it's like actually like about like some kind of like really personal experience. I don't know exactly what that experience is, but it's actually a very emotional song. Like to the point where they eventually cut out and go like completely acoustic at one point.
Yeah, it really sets up though. Another big like I think aspect of good albums is that they pay attention to the album order, and so
sequencing, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
My specialty.
It's such a heavy song, but then they do drop it out, and it feels like it naturally leads into the fourth track, hilariously titled Number 4.
Yeah, Number 4, and you're like, oh god, an instrumental song? No, man. I mean, yes, it is an instrumental song, but like this song will make you feel things. It will make you feel good. It's one of the best instrumentals that I've heard. 4 minutes long, kind of long for a Node song, but it's interesting. It still has all the same dynamic shift that you would be, that you would have signed up for at this point. This doesn't let you down. This is a slowing it down to an extent, but I like it. I like the emotional melodic playing, the kind of harmonized like dual guitar going on. It's really good. It's textured, and it sounds great.
I mean, stuff like this, again, is showing the confidence of the band in general, that they'll dedicate 4 minutes of a 34-minute album to an entire track of just music, no vocals. Like, that showcases their confidence in their ability to write good songs and interesting songs that, they'll essentially, out of 10 songs, waste one,
Yeah.
Quote unquote. I don't think it's wasted because I think it's an amazing track, but a lot of people would think, oh, there's no lyrics, it's wasted, but skip it. It's like, no, don't.
And that's
skip
usually
this.
what I say, but yeah.
It's because you're a meathead.
This record's basically like an EP. I mean, they threw 2 songs away. The end is also a wasted song, but we'll get to that. But we also don't want to blink or we may miss it. This is kind of like, I would say this is like the big song on the record. This is the one that really ties the room together. It's the Dude's Rug and the Big Lebowski. It really ties the record together. Don't Blink or We May Miss It is they're doing what they did on the first album again. It's a nice, pretty melodic intro, and then you kind of pause, and then you're just suddenly into it. The very idea of beauty died so long ago. You're like, oh my god, like these guys are not messing around. These are some of the like, I could write a book about this record, honestly. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is that song. Go ahead.
Joe and I mentioned, the concept of hidden gems in one of our Patreon episodes, and this is absolutely that. I think this is a record that gets overlooked by people, and what they're really overlooking is literally like in my top 10, records of all time. This song itself had such a profound effect on me, and I think that it's also like it sounds the most like their previous record. I almost feel like they might have sat down and wrote this like almost immediately after, like it had to have been in the first batch of songs for this record. Could totally be wrong about that, but absolutely this song 100% slays. And this is where they start bringing the clean vocals in there again that they had before. And that's one thing I love about Nodes is that, yeah, the clean vocals, they're a little 2003, let's put it that way. But they only use them when they're necessary. They don't force choruses into these songs.
Yeah, they don't bust into those. Yeah, they don't bust into the clean vocals very much. And so whenever they do use the clean vocals, it's profound and it makes sense and it feels, right. But we can't move on from this album without talking about, oh yeah, well, my daddy died with a needle in his arm.
Oh my god. Super creepy intro, which is appropriate because it's a super creepy song. My goodness. It starts
Alethean much?
No, I mean not quite like that, but it's different. And then again, much like the first song, you're like sitting in this kind of false sense of security. You're a little creeped out, but for the most part, you're all right. And then just out of break out the best china, and you're like, oh god.
The aftermath.
The sheer amount of guitar shreddage that's going on between the breakdowns here is ridiculous. Like they're like noodling around in this song, and it's metalcore from 2003, but they're playing like a legit metal band. Like this is insane. Vocals are crazy, all kinds of cool like guitar noodling going on. heavy breakdowns, and then you get into the actual lyrical content, which is about like a rock star committing suicide, and how this song musically and lyrically documents that process all the way up until this insane, everybody get ready to laugh because I'm about to say the word climax. But once you get to the climax, it is you are left feeling absolutely cold. Like the build up to that part is, it almost seems never ending. Like it's not that long of a song, but like it goes on for like a good minute before you get to that point.
I mean, this song is, you don't feel good after the end of this one, you know, if you pay attention at all to what's being said. But, you know, it's, yeah. This one will wreck you.
Yeah, I mean, just it's almost, it goes into creepy creepy chants, but they're like hardcore vocals. So he's like, you know, towards the end it's like building up, and he's just yelling like, oh opiate, oh revolver, oh opiate, oh revolver, oh opiate, oh revolver, and then it just builds up, and it's like and then boom, and then silence, and he's like, another dead rock star, rest in peace. And you're like, did I just listen to a suicide? Like, I mean, it's terrifying. It's not something. There is. I'll make this claim. There is no other song from a Christian metalcore band from 2003 that evokes the same feeling that this song evokes. It is absolutely one of the darkest moments in Facedown Records history, man.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then it just draws out its ending too. Like it doesn't, you know, it's not like it carries the breakdown to the end or anything.
That's what's great about this album. It takes you on that journey. And unfortunately, this is the darkness in that journey. You know, it's like Neverending Story when Artex is in the swamp of sadness and doesn't get out. Did that have to happen for the movie to make me connect with that character? No. But when it did happen, I was upset.
New York City, 1963. I'm only going to mention this because we're going to stop the track by track here. But oh my goodness, that point where he's like, you know, are there any things, you know, in particular that you're angry about? And he's like, I'm not angry. I don't know why, but that's just hilarious. That's a great song. There's a great little like acapella going on in that song.
Yeah, that's their kind of like weird track.
This is where the record starts getting kind of like artsy, and I love it.
They still bring the pain on it though too, which is great.
So much pain.
Oh yeah.
All right, guys. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the Nodes of Ranvier self-titled is like one of the greatest metalcore albums ever recorded. Like just straight up. Like you don't expect it from a band like this. 4 records, Facedown Records. Not that the Facedown Records bands are bad, but like they don't have a lot of longevity. A lot of the times that they're usually just a couple albums and done. So all I have to say is that I could not have been more excited for the years to come out.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Until the years to come came out.
2005.
You know, I don't think I heard a track from this album because I didn't want to spoil it, and I went out and I bought it at Best Buy because that's what you did. You know, in what, 05? Is that when this came out? I think
we were still stopping at Krispy Kreme on the way there and on the way out of there.
I mean, you can imagine how
Buddy,
we just
you can't take the box inside the store.
But the box must stay with me. Now, you can imagine, we as much as we just talked about that album, like we ate this album up, you know, at this point now, we've still been listening to it for 18 years. And so we've had this album spinning for 2 years on rotation, you know, constantly. And so we walk in excited for the new Nodes of Ranvier. And I think we knew that there was a lead singer change. I don't remember if we knew that going in, but I'm pretty positive I didn't listen to anything before I bought it. Pop that into the CD player in the car, and it starts out like thinking, oh man, this is going to be good. And then those vocals kick in.
I almost took the CD out of your CD player and threw it out the window, but like you just bought it, so that would have been like a shitty thing to do. But like,
yeah, that would have been bad.
I mean, it's hard because it's the same band minus the vocalist and minus all the creativity.
Yeah, was the vocalist the only thing that changed?
I don't know. That's a good question. Something, you know, if you're listening to this episode, you know exactly how many people changed between those records. Please let us know in a comment or something. And, you know, educate us on this. But yeah, these vocals, man, I don't know what they were thinking with these. You know, there's vocals and there's like fake vocals. These are definitely fake vocals. I mean, they're not fake in that like they're computer assisted, but like,
if I got down and puked in a bucket, this is what the vocals on this record would sound like.
and like I'm not joking. Like, go listen to the record. That's what the vocals sound like, except like well produced, so you get a better version of the bad sound.
He's like,
It almost sounds like he's inhaling instead of exhaling, and it just doesn't. It's hard to take seriously.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're going really hard for like a hard rock vibe on this one, but they're playing like generic metalcore riffs for 2006, and the songs kind of follow like the normal metalcore formula. And I don't know if they were doing this just to try to get more popular or whatever, but like this record goes on for an excessive 12 tracks. And
over 40 minutes.
Yeah. And like the last record was like less than a half hour long and was incredible.
34. Yeah.
You know, brevity, man. Brevity is important sometimes.
I don't think brevity would have saved this one. Like, it's those the vocals, the styling of the vocals, I think completely killed it. Because as I listened to this album about 3 times today, just trying to wrap my head around it again. Now, 03 me hated this completely. Like, I just couldn't stand this. And then, listening to it now, it's not as bad as I remember it, but it's not Nodes. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's not Nodes.
But musically, it's still really good musically. Like, again, all my favorite tracks, because I was like going through, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember liking this track. And the common thing between all of those tracks that I loved the most, they had no vocals on them. Or if they did, like Grave, they were not screamed vocals.
So you guys mentioned the lineup changes on this album.
Yeah.
Nick Murphy was playing bass for this band in the time frame between the self-titled release and this record. And then when Tommy left the band and was no longer the vocalist that you know and love, Nick just transitioned into the vocalist spot. So for this record, they have a different bass player, and the previous bass player is now doing the vocals. You'll be happy to know this is the only time he did that.
Yeah, he left the band, and so did Terry Taylor long before they came out with the follow-up record.
I don't hate this one. I'm not as nostalgic for the self-titled record as the two of you are. I agree. That album is a metalcore masterpiece, but this one is that follow-up to the masterpiece in my eyes. You can't do that again, but you could put a little more time into it instead of putting out the first thing that comes to mind, which at this time was what we were used to. You hear that masterpiece, and then you hear the follow-up, which just sounds like the record label came in and said, we need you to put out another album because we didn't learn from Hootie and the Blowfish. Just keep playing the songs people like, guys. You know, we have to do this shit again.
I'd take Hootie over this. Hootie has beautiful vocals. But
with a little love and tenderness, man. Come on.
I don't know, man. Like, it just, I'm just going to say it. I never say that on this podcast, but it just sucks. Like, in comparison to the last record, it just sucks. Like, I hate it. I can't stand listening to it.
I could see, like, if you heard this first, it's, again, because my 2021 ears, the vocals aren't as bad to me, but yeah, comparatively to the self-titled, it's not a good record.
Yeah, it's really not.
It's acceptable for 2005, but not in comparison to the previous album.
Interestingly, though, musically, they kept a lot of the dynamics and things that still made them Nodes. But yeah, once you slather the vocals on, it just can't hang.
Yeah, it just can't hang. And speaking of records that can't hang, they made a brief comeback. And it's also interesting to note that this was not this next record that comes out. And I don't know if this one did also. I believe they made a switch to Victory Records in between albums.
They did. Oh, before we move to the next album, definitely listen to Novacane for No Reason off of The Years to Come, because that intro is really creepy with the little girl saying she's walking up the stairs and I saw a man who wasn't there. Like, just think about that. That is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
It's like that scene from Poltergeist, right? 2007, Defined by Struggle.
Okay, so Defined by Struggle is a really great record by a band, but not by Nodes of Ranvier. Like,
But Notes of
It's-
Ranvier put it out, Dan, so it's a good album by Notes of Ranvier is what you're saying.
I mean, it says Notes of Ranvier on the cover. I mean, it does say that. I can't deny that. But this is more of just like a straight ahead metalcore record, and I like it because it's not generic at all. It sounds nothing like the previous 3 records, and but that's not a bad thing. It was kind of a breath of fresh air. Different vocalist on this one, who was much, much better. Nobody can touch the original vocalist, but this is all right. Like, you know, his voice sounds good. He sounds pissed off. He does unfortunately fall into this category of maybe he was like nervous when he was recording the lyrics, because it sounds like he's reading off of a sheet while he's doing the takes. You know, and that kind of like bugs me a little bit. Like, it just, the vocals are very like dun, dun, like I'm gonna sing exactly here during this measure in this time. Like, it seems very calculated. But I do enjoy the guitar shred. I enjoy the breakdowns. I enjoy it as a catchy hardcore metalcore sort of record. It's good, but it just doesn't. They're not even the same band at this point.
Yeah, they lose all the dynamics that made Nodes of Ranvier what they were, because it's pretty much a straight ahead like metalcore record. You know, it's not really melodic hardcore or anything like that, you know, anymore. It's good, you know, like I there's songs I like on it for sure, but you know, if I only had a half hour, I'm not going to choose to listen to this one. I'm going to go back to the self-titled every time.
Dynamics are important when you've set that expectation, and this band has clearly executed the dynamics in the past. But the single member who survived a previous lineup change is the guitarist. I get the impression he is not the one who designed those dynamics, because now you have a new band and you're just trying to be as heavy as possible. In 2007, when metalcore was in full swing, I don't hate this album, but Nodes of Ranvier just has this expectation in my brain that I'm not going to get the generic metalcore thing. At the same time, I think they tried the best they could, and there must be a reason why this is the last record. So overall, I enjoy the band. This is not my final thought.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
the level of dynamics that this band delivers is a blueprint that other bands should have followed in 2007 when metalcore was full pop. Are we ready for final thoughts then?
I mean, I would say so, man. Who wants to go first?
Eeny, meeny. Final thoughts on Nodes of Ranvier, buddy.
All right. So, I mean, if it isn't clear already, you know, the self-titled album is where it's at. If you're going to pick one album to listen to by them, just grab that one and listen to the Nodes of Ranvier self-titled. You're not going to have a bad time. It's going to be a banger on every track. Not to say that there isn't good songs on the other albums, but, you know, with the first album, it'll be just as good, you know, not quite as good as the self-titled, but it'll be great. But the last two, you're probably going to pick and choose things you like off it. They're still decent albums, but they have their own feel and their own, you know, thing going for them. But yeah, if there's one thing you do after you listen to this podcast, it's go listen to that self-titled and understand why Dan and I have spun this album for 18 years.
Dan, what about you?
Nodes of Ranvier is a band that had so much potential, and we saw what they were capable of doing on that self-titled record, and even on the first record, Lost Senses, More Innocence. You know, like that one had it too. But I just think that with some measure of success, you know, and changes in the band, and you know, finding dudes that are going to show up and play, it's challenging. And whenever you change the lineup to the extent that they did, you unfortunately end up with what sounds like 3 different bands at the end of the day. And for some people, that maybe is a good thing. I mean, I do enjoy variety, but in this particular case, I can't abide by one okay album, one really bad one perfect one, and then one that's, you know, not quite as perfect as the perfect one.
I think Nodes of Ranvier hit a sweet spot in metalcore that a lot of bands got very close to, but nobody grabbed it. You have those gems of records that you go back and listen to because there's a reason we all liked listening to metalcore back in the day. Nodes of Ranvier is a band that conveys an idea that metalcore really could have been an in-depth genre that took you on a journey, but nobody could latch onto that. Everybody else picked an atmosphere for that album and then just did what Zao did, or did what Haste the Day did, or played the generic As I Lay Dying riff. And that was fine at the time, but a lot of those records we don't go back to. We're always going to go back to Nodes of Ranvier, the self-titled, but are we going to go back to the band as a whole? There are gems here, and I think the band is worth listening to, but I lean on Dan and Buddy for this one. The self-titled is a masterpiece, and you need to spend a lot of time with it. So listen to Nodes of Ranvier. If you play your cards right, you will not be disappointed. Dan, what's your album of the week?
I mean, without a doubt, completely hands down, it's Misled by Certainty by Cephalic Carnage. I mean, it just is.
Buddy, what about you?
Probably, well, I've been working past couple of days. I've been listening to Damnation by Opeth, and when I finish that, I switch over to Mere Reaper by Bell Witch, and then I switch over to the self-titled Nodes of Ranvier. So it's kind of a three-way tie because I just keep going round and round in a circle between all three of them.
I don't people
believe
have
you.
multiple
believe
picks,
you're-
but I'm going to have to let Buddy have multiple picks because he has the hammer.
I don't believe him. If he started listening to that Bell Witch album, he'd still be listening to it.
I have so much more time to listen to music now. It's awesome. Working from home is the best.
I mean, that Bell Witch record, is it an album? Is it a single?
No one knows, but it's amazing. That's what I can tell you.
Funeral Doom for the win.
For me, it's Phantasmagore by Deadsy. Just driving down the highway with the windows down, blasting that shit. Makes you feel good inside. Because who doesn't need more Deadsy in their life? Take us out, DFT.
What is up, all you fine folks in podcast land?
Hi, Dan.
I just want to thank you sincerely for listening to these episodes, listening to the podcast every single week, and listening to our opinions, and not completely jumping down our throats for the opinions that we throw out there. It's actually kind of incredible to me. But if you're looking for other ways to get in touch with us or the podcast, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/discography discussion. You can tweet at us at discussmetal. You can find us on Instagram at discussmetal as well. You can go to our website, discussmetal.com. And you can send an email to us at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. And you can always join our Discord server. There's a link in the show notes that'll take you to our Discord server, where there are fans of the show talking all the time about a variety of different topics. And it's quite enjoyable. You might want to turn notifications off, though, because your phone will explode. But I enjoy it. Bring it on. Thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast. If you want some sweet Discography Discussion merch, you can head over to our Teespring store, where we've got a variety of products with our logo lavished all over it. I think there's even socks over there. So if you want some new socks, when you put your feet together, it says Discography Discussion, we could do that for you. So, check it out. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.
And on that note, this has been episode 216 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money, please.
Wait a minute. What?
We don't normally do this, but if you're still listening to this at this point, Jeff popped in about halfway through the recording of this episode. So, it's a special guest. It's an Easter egg. Tune in. You're going to get to hear some Jeff.
Yeah, I get one line. Woohoo.
Woohoo.
Yeah, but at least I got to stare at that glorious long hair.
Oh, dude, this is my COVID hair. I haven't cut my hair since, for a year.
Oh, his
That's
hair
why
has
it's so long.
COVID.
$1 gets you into that exclusive album review feed.